I'm Steve Pinder. I'm here with the Texas Martial Arts Hall of Fame, and I'm here with Mr. David Koes. How are you doing, sir?
Great, thank you.
Great, great. Now, I always love to start off with my interviews, go right back to the beginning.
Okay.
With martial arts.
Yeah.
How did you learn about it, and what made you want to do it?
Well, I think I'm half Korean by blood. I was born in Korea. Of course, I came to this country when I was 3 years old, and I was in an orphanage, and I was adopted. Came to this country, and so part of my martial arts, the desire to learn martial arts, was one for self-defense. Of course, I was getting bullied in school and things like that, but also it was a connection to my Asian heritage of being half Korean.
So what style did you start off in?
I started, I'm half Korean, and I wanted to start with Taekwondo, of course, but actually I didn't. I started with Judo because that was all that was available at the time. I was 16 years old, and I was very fortunate to have several, actually a number of good instructors, and so I started with Japanese Judo. Of course, there's Korean Judo, which I wasn't, again, able to take because I didn't have an instructor. And I moved from that on to Shotokan, karate. And as martial arts grew in this country and more styles became available, I was able to study different things, and eventually I ended up studying several styles of Taekwondo. There are 9 major styles, as you know, and because Taekwondo is just the umbrella name for the Korean kick punch arts, and so that's kind of how I started. But I was very fortunate that I was exposed to a number of different martial arts. Some that I didn't even study, but I was just exposed to. I had friends that did different martial arts, eskrima, Filipino knife fighting as well. There was just a number of things. So I was very fortunate in the early days to be exposed to all that stuff.
Now, so you're in martial arts. When did you feel like, hey, I might actually be pretty good at this? Was there ever a point where
I don't think I ever felt that way.
Did you start competing right away, or?
Yes, yes. And I think that's something that's very American in our blood, is that when we do something, we compete. I mean,
no matter what it is,
we fight. We compete.
You got to test yourself.
Yes,
yeah, absolutely.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
So now you did this all the way through high school, right?
Yes, I did. I spent my freshman and sophomore year in high school in Liberia. My father was a Peace Corps doctor, and so I spent those 2 years over there. And I actually was exposed to some judo over there, even though I didn't really study it. I was also exposed to a little bit of boxing. I had an older gentleman who was still a teenager but older to me, teach me a little bit. I was not one of those people who, was precocious in learning. I wasn't one of those people that I immediately, became fantastic. I had to work very, very hard at it and stuff. So it's one of those things where you study something and you hope to get good at it, and of course you're influenced by all these other people that are out there that you see that are fantastic and so forth. So but that's kind of how I started. I was overseas. I came back to the United States my junior and senior year. I was very heavily into judo and then moved on to karate from there.
So how long after you graduated high school did you, I know you went into the military, how long did you go before you went into the military? Was it right away?
Actually, I graduated a few years ago, 1973. And I dropped in and out of colleges, and I then I fought at Madison Square Garden and won at the Garden. in the black belt division. I won the world championships for the World Taekwondo Association, which was an organization headed by Grandmaster Duck's son.
Okay.
Okay. And then I went into the military in September of 1977.
Okay.
So it was about I guess a year after I'd won the championships at Madison Square Garden.
Okay. So I'm trying to get a timeline going here. You've done so much stuff.
Well, I've been very fortunate that I've been given some opportunities. In those days, they had a contract program that I and several of my friends went into, and it was Special Forces, the Green Beret, and you went through basic AIT, the Advanced Individual Training, jump school, the Special Forces qualification school. Then you went down to the teams, and I went down to the teams with 5 people, and about, I guess, 2 or 3 weeks later, there were only 2 of us left and stuff, because you were really kind of vetted along the way at each step. I was very fortunate to be accepted, and that's kind of when my Special Forces career started. But it was different in those days than it is, I think, now, where you had to be a sergeant or an E5 before you're even permitted to try out. And then during that time frame, I stayed in the enlisted ranks for 5 years. I was a sergeant. I was an E5, and then I went to, I made sergeant in, I believe, 3 years, which was the fastest time in those days. And I stayed another 2 years, so I did 5 years enlisted, and then I went to OCS, became an officer, and then I was fortunate enough to go back and do the officers qualification course, and went back to the teams in Bad Tölz, Germany. So I was in 10th group then. I was an executive officer, one of the last officers. Now they have warrant officers and so forth that are executive officers, but I was one of the last executive officers on a team. Then I was fortunate enough to be selected as a team commander as a first lieutenant. The day I made first lieutenant, I got my team, and that is a selection that's normally reserved for an 03 or a captain. So I was very fortunate to be selected for that as a team commander.
So during all this time now, I mean, you're in the military now. Did martial arts take a back seat during this time?
No, not at all. I actually, during my time in 5th Special Forces as enlisted, I was actually tasked, along with several other of my friends who were martial artists, to start a program for 5th Special Forces Group. Now, you have to understand the kind of the history of Special Forces and martial arts is that at various times there were different martial art programs that would start up, and then the founders of those programs would kind of move on or be assigned to different areas, so they would no longer teach. And so when people talk about teaching martial arts in Special Forces, a lot of times there's not a whole lot of continuity. So I was fortunate enough to be able to be able to start a program along with several other individuals, and we taught 2nd Battalion, 5th Special Forces Group.
So when did military end for you?
Oh, let's see, 1986, I left the military, and I was a disabled veteran living in the YMCA, worst time in my life. I graduated college. In order to go into the FBI, which was my next endeavor, I had to go to college. I graduated college taking 15 to 21 credits a semester. I graduated in about 18 months. I then applied for the FBI. I had a clearance, a top secret clearance, the entire time I'd been in Special Forces. I think you started out with a secret, and then you were moved up depending on the work you were doing. I ended up being vetted, which took about a year, if I recall correctly, and then went into the FBI. as a brand new agent.
What was that like? I mean, when we're talking about, you start off in martial arts when you're a kid, you go into the military, you had this enormous career in the military, you were an officer, you come out, I'm listening to this and it sounds like there's peaks and there's lows.
Oh, of course, yeah.
You made it through college and you're in the FBI now. What was that like?
It was tremendous. The thing is, I think in our life's journey of anything, you have different individuals that help you, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think and my peer group that I went through, you have a lot of people pulling for you. A lot of the different endeavors that I've tried in my life, I have to give credit to some of the people that I went through these courses with and these selection processes with, because everybody's pulling for you, and that's a really big. I think that's a very big deal. I don't think people give that enough credit. But I went into when I went into the FBI, I got a lot of questions because my training had been so good in Special Forces. People were asking, well, what's the training like in the FBI? And it was top notch. I was just, it was so, it just drew me in because everything I did was top notch. That I received, everything I received was just incredible. The instructors at Quantico were great. A lot of them had military backgrounds, so and of course, as you know, the military is sort of a brotherhood. So SEAL team guy, you gravitate towards the other SF guys, the other SEAL team guys. There are pararescue guys that are there. They're Marines. And of course, I've always I've always been drawn towards those individuals.
Any big cases that you can talk about?
I was very fortunate. I had a lot of cases. A lot of I was fortunate because the Bureau or the FBI was much different in those days than it is now. Now we're kind of an organization of specialists. In those days, you worked everything. And I was fortunate enough to work violent criminals and major offenders program, bank robberies, white-collar crime, money laundering, things like that, overseas stuff like that. What else? And of course, I ran a drug task force. I was fortunate enough to be selected for that in the Norfolk Division, which is in Virginia, just down from the Richmond, division. And but I think there's no. People ask me a lot about cases. I like to think in terms of my FBI career, again, more as even though you have individual cases where you work, in the example of drug cases, I worked my entire career pretty much with local police officers, state police, local sheriff's departments. I was truly blessed that the individuals that I worked with were just fantastic. And I know I kind of sound like a cheerleader when I keep saying this type, but that's really the truth. It was only the last 3 years of my career that I really ended up working just with other FBI agents, because that's when I started. I started working, I think, counterterrorism after 9/11. I was an interrogator in Iraq. I was a SWAT team leader. I was fortunate enough to be selected because these are all selected positions. You have to apply. There's quite a bit of criteria that certainly you have to meet, and it. Like a lot of things, it's a competition, and
of course,
and again, I have to say that I was fortunate enough to be selected for some of these positions.
So when did did you retire from the FBI?
Yes, yes, I did 20. I wanted to do 30 years, 30 years of government service, like on the nose. So I think I did 8 years and 8 months in Special Forces, and my military career was all in Special Forces. I did not really serve in any other unit except for the training units I was in while I was going through. And then when I left that, of course, I had that break in there where I was doing college. I worked on Wall Street for a short period of time. My degree is in finance and investments. And then when I went into the FBI, I served in the FBI for, I think it was 21 years. It was the exact, so I could get out, on September 30th with, with 30 years of government service. So, yeah.
So so now you're done with this. Now, I've seen pictures of this boat.
Oh, yeah.
Did you go straight from the FBI to racing?
No, that's the boat thing is another whole story. I love that type of stuff. I am self-taught, a self-taught mechanic, and well, I'm kind of self-taught in just about everything. I was not in the wealth category where I could afford to have. I've always loved race cars. I've always loved Porsches. I've always loved Corvettes. And I was not in the wealth category that I could just write a check for these things. So I would have to get, one that was kind of broken down, and again, with the help of very many talented friends, would fix these up, and then occasionally I would sell one, get a little extra money, and then we'd leapfrog above to a better model and that type of stuff. So, but anyway, I moved to Hampton, Virginia, and that's where I was stationed with the FBI. Well, Hampton is the home of the longest running motorsports race in the country, which is the Summer Nationals, for the hydroplane race. Okay. And the first time I ever saw those boats run, I was just captivated because they look like Formula One race cars on the water. So I was very fortunate, and I ended up. This is kind of a funny story. We had a little overpowered 21-foot boat. That's pretty much all we could afford at that time. And my friend and I went out in the day after the race. I was all excited, and I was gonna practice running around like where they had the buoys set up. And I almost ran into the bridge because this is not a hydroplane that I was running. Okay. So it was like a regular, just a regular, what they would call an offshore boat, but it certainly wasn't of that caliber. Well, my friend that I was with made the mistake of telling my wife, and my wife looked at me and said, "Hey, that's the family boat. You want a race boat? You go out and get one." I was like, "Oh, okay."
That sounds like permission.
Yeah. So I ended up. I was a counselor up at Quantico for a class that was going through, and on one of the weekends, I literally flew out to Washington State, picked up a championship boat, of the smaller classes, and drove back in a U-Haul with the boat and everything, and it ended up staying up at Quantico while I was doing the counselor thing up there. So, but then I raced that for a couple of years. I was Rookie of the Year, and fortunately, and that's one of the problems when you become initially successful at something. You think you can really, I can handle anything. So I always wanted to be in the Grand National class. So I ended up eventually buying the world record holder, and that's the boat actually I have to this day. And I running a big boat without sponsorship and things like that is extremely hard. And I was very fortunate again with the help that I got. Volunteers, friends, the boat was magnificent, but it needed a lot of work. The races are very hard on boats like that, and this, when you run this boat, it's just tearing itself apart, and so I was running with water in the boat, and I would break down, and so forth. Well, I finally got things ironed out, during a race, and I won in very spectacular fashion. You know, a lot of people who knew that I worked really hard on the boat were very happy for me and everything. The problem is that race was on a Saturday and Sunday. On Monday, 9/11 hit. That was the end of my boat racing career for quite a while.
Yeah.
Because the whole country, of course, we
still.
mobilized. Yes, and we're still that way. We mobilized, and we were working around the clock. And that's when I pretty much turned from doing criminal work, as did a lot of other FBI agents, and started working counterterrorism. So.
Yeah, my brother was Coast Guard stationed at Staten Island during ground zero. Yeah, so.
I'll tell you, boy.
Yeah,
that's...
and the world stood still.
Yes.
You know, because I remember where I was when that happened.
Absolutely.
Everybody does.
Yeah.
But
yeah, crazy. That it just craziness. Watching that, and I can imagine what he was feeling, being right there. That's amazing. Yeah.
Now, did you ever have any mishaps on the water? Because I've seen those boats run, and when they wreck, it's not pretty.
Well, I'll tell you, I think maybe my funniest story, because I've had a number. Was I was up in Valleyfield, up in Canada, and the shaft on my boat broke, and within less than 1 second, because it's rotating at some ungodly speed, went up through the bottom of the boat and tore the whole bottom of the boat out. So I started to sink. Well, I didn't realize I was sinking, first of all, but I was on the race course, and they don't stop the race unless there's an issue right there, So my boat is a black boat. I started to sink, and then I started thinking, I'm in a capsule, and the hair on my neck, I could hear the other boats, and there is nothing like hearing big blocks coming at you, and you know how fast they're coming, and they're coming, and I was at the bottom of the straightaway, and I was thinking to myself, do I open my capsule, get out of this thing where people can see me, they'll see my orange thing, but will they have time to react if they see me? They're going to run over me. So I stayed in the capsule, and I tell you, it was kind of a unique experience, because I could hear them winding up and coming, and they fortunately saw me, good drivers in the class. You depend on the other drivers and their skill levels also. They came and they split the boat perfectly and then came back together. And of course, spatially, seeing that, and I'm locked in, and can't move, I can only look straight ahead like that, was just an amazing experience. And then the other thing that was kind of funny was I was drifting towards the shore, and I saw all the people, and they speak French up there in Valleyfield. They were yelling at me in French. Now, I took some high school French, but I couldn't understand what they were saying. I thought they were waving at me, so I'm waving too, because everybody's real friendly, and they love hydroplanes. Well, I didn't realize that I finally took off my belt, went to get up, and realized I was like underwater. And but meanwhile, the rescue crew were great. They came barreling across and hooked me up and got me out, and I didn't sink completely. But,
okay, well, this obviously.
You're right, but I've had a number of experiences like that.
So you're still doing that?
No, about 4 years ago, I guess it was now. There's so many other things in my life. The kids are. They're not fully grown, but they're in their 20s and early 30s now, and there are just so many other priorities. And I work partly for the State Department. I have a very small company that hires really other FBI agents and special forces, mostly people that I know when a company might call me and say, hey, we need people with certain capabilities, and I'm able to hook them up with something. So.
Are you still training in martial arts?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
So has that been more now in your retirement from all of that?
Absolutely. I've really been rejuvenated in martial arts. There was a long period of time where I never stopped, but I did kind of step aside. There were so many other things in my life that were going on. I did, as I mentioned, I continued to train and train soldiers when I was in the military, but going away and in special forces, I was gone 10 months out of the year once I started getting deployed. So it was very difficult. I would go through stretches of time where I just really couldn't train, very much. But
I've heard of some of your instructors. There's quite a list.
yes, I have been truly blessed by the people who I suppose they saw something in me, or I don't know. I don't know what they saw, but they have really, I can only, and I say this a lot, and I use the word a lot, but I really truly have been blessed by the people who have helped me. I've trained real hard, and I think that's probably one of the things that these individuals, Grandmaster J. Pat Burleson, Grandmaster, Jim Harrison, and of course Grandmaster, Bob Wall. Now these are three icons, and I am so honored that they wanted to have anything to do with me. Grandmaster Duck Sung's son, who was a Grandmaster for Chundakwan in Korea, who came to this country, 1963, and taught Taekwondo. Now, Grandmaster Sun taught Chundakwan, and also Jun Rhee, who was J. Pat Burleson's, Grandmaster J. Pat Burleson's instructor. Now, Jun Rhee came to this country before Master Sun did. And of course, the history of Taekwondo in this country is very interesting because, like anything, it depends on who you talk to as to what the history really is and who was where first and who did what first. But of course, history has a way of sorting all that out. So, but these are all wonderful, tremendous men that I was.
At this point in your life, is there anything that you go, wow, I wish I had done that? I mean, you've done a lot.
Right. Oh, no, I've been very fortunate. No, because I'm doing it. I started doing jiu-jitsu. I've always wanted to do jiu-jitsu. Never had an instructor. That I went into a lot of schools, and I had some very definite ideas, and I found an instructor up in Virginia where I was. Ben Eaton, Professor Ben Eaton. He is I believe he's a third degree now. Wonderful, just fantastic instructor. He is an Ibero jiu-jitsu player who Solo Ibero is like a 7 or 8 time, 9 time, and I don't want to disrespect him and get that wrong, but he's a multiple world champion. Written books, Jiu-Jitsu University. I love the Ibero style because it's a somewhat aggressive pressing forward style at all times. But my problem has been more injuries. I had both my knees replaced. I've had 14 different operations, including my back. So now I'm finally healthy again. So I'm trying to get back in shape so that I can go actually back up to Virginia and take a few private lessons to get myself back, kind of back up to a certain level with Professor Eaton. And then I will come down and probably take from one of the Ibero schools in Sarasota, which is about 45 minutes from me in Florida.
Okay, last question. Are your children following in your footsteps in any way?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
And I get this question a lot. Am I teaching my kids? And one of the things, the reason, and the answer is no. I'm willing to now, but I think I was so driven myself. I wanted my kids to love martial arts the way I did. The problem is, had I been an instructor with them, I've always been told I was a great instructor with kids and things like that, but your own kids are different.
Oh, I can tell you, I know that one.
Right, and
Yeah.
and so I think what happens is you become so driven because you want them to be good that you have that side where you can turn them against something. And I love the martial arts so much that I would never want to turn my kids against them. So in the past, I have not taught them, but now I'm actually willing to,
Yeah.
because I've matured enough, I think.
Yeah, and I
You
think
know.
when I started teaching
Sure.
my kids, it was always okay. All of my students are a direct reflection of me.
Yes.
My kids
Yeah.
are twice that reflection.
Right,
Because,
right.
so
Yeah. And
they're going to work twice as hard to get
Right.
what everyone else did.
And plus, you want that. When you love something, you want. I'm
You
not.
want them
I'm
to
not.
love-
I'm
yeah.
not a perfectionist in everything that I do. Truly. I never would have gotten anywhere if I were a perfectionist. But with martial arts, I really was, because I don't talk about the kata side of things, but I actually won the time when I won the fighting portion of the World Championships, which I actually did twice. When I came out of the military, I won it again. But I also won the forms division at the same
That's
time.
awesome.
So, because my instructor was a firm, and I was really taught kind of old school. Kata or forms was not taught from the standpoint of necessarily realism. It was taught in terms of perfection of technique.
Yeah.
So that's really what it was.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure, sir.
Thank you.
And I thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Everybody, that is David Koes, and you're listening to Texas Martial Arts Hall of Fame. Thank you.